Admiral Park Hyun-woo stood on the bridge of the UES Incheon's Pride, watching the stars through the massive viewing window. His coffee had gone cold hours ago, but he didn't notice. The ship's communication officer had been trying to reach New Seoul Colony for 3 days now. Each attempt met with the same result: silence. "Sir, we're receiving an emergency transmission," called out Lieutenant Kim Jae-ho from his station. His voice was tight with worry. "It's from New Seoul Colony. The signal is very weak." Park rushed to the communications console. The screen flickered with static, then cleared enough to show a familiar face. Colony Administrator Kim So-min appeared on the display, her usually neat hair disheveled and her face pale with fear. "This is New Seoul Colony calling any Earth Fleet vessel," she said, her voice breaking up through the interference. "We are under attack. Repeat, we are under attack. Unknown alien ships are bombing our cities. We have 2.3 million civilians trapped on the surface. Our orbital defenses are gone. The shields are failing." The transmission cut to static for several seconds. When Kim So-min's face appeared again, explosions could be seen through the window behind her. "The attackers, they look like Valthari ships, big ones. They're not responding to our surrender signals. They're not taking prisoners. They're just destroying everything." Her eyes filled with tears. "If anyone receives this message, tell Earth that we tried to—" The screen went black. No matter how hard Lieutenant Kim Jae-ho worked at his controls, the signal was gone. Park stared at the dead screen for a long moment. New Seoul Colony was home to over 2 million humans. It was their newest and most successful settlement outside Earth's solar system. The colony had rich mining operations and beautiful cities. Most importantly, it was supposed to be protected by a peace treaty with the Valthari Empire. "Get me Earth Command immediately," Park ordered. "Priority 1 emergency channel." While they waited for the connection, Park thought about what he had just seen. The Valthari were a warrior race, proud and strong. They had been part of the galactic community for over 1,000 years. Their ships were powerful, and their military was respected throughout the galaxy. But they had signed treaties with Earth. They had agreed to recognize human colony rights. "Earth Command on the line, sir," reported Kim Jae-ho. Director Choi Min-jung appeared on the main screen. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and gray hair tied back in a simple knot. She had been Earth's Strategic Command Director for 10 years, and Park had never seen her look worried. Today she looked worried. "Admiral Park, we received your emergency signal. What's the situation?" "New Seoul Colony is under attack, Director. The transmission showed Valthari ships bombing the surface. Administrator Kim So-min said they weren't accepting surrender. The colony has gone silent." Choi Min-jung was quiet for a moment. "How long since the last transmission?" 4 hours, ma'am. "We've been trying to reach them with no success. The colony's emergency beacons are offline. Everything is offline. Admiral, I want you to maintain your current position. Do not approach the New Seoul system. Do not send any ships toward Valthari space. Is that understood?" Park felt confused by the order. "Director, shouldn't we—" "Those are your orders, Admiral. Maintain position and wait for further instructions." The screen went dark. Park stared at it, feeling helpless. He had 12 ships under his command, but Choi Min-jung was right. 12 ships wouldn't stand a chance against a Valthari attack fleet. Meanwhile, in the asteroid belt near New Seoul, Captain Lee Jin-ho crouched inside his damaged reconnaissance ship, the Busan Runner. He watched through his ship's sensors as the alien vessels finished their work. The planet that had been green and blue just days ago was now glowing red with fires. The orbital stations were twisted metal floating in space. Jin-ho had been on patrol when the attack began. His small ship had been hidden among the asteroids, conducting routine surveys. He had watched in horror as the Valthari fleet arrived without warning and began their assault. The colony's defense ships had tried to fight, but they were outnumbered 10 to 1. He had recorded everything. Every explosion, every dying ship, every moment of the 3-day battle. The Valthari had been thorough. They destroyed the orbital defenses first, then bombed the surface cities until nothing moved. When it was over, they had simply left. Jin-ho's ship was too damaged to make the jump to hyperspace, but his communications array still worked. He prepared a data burst containing all his recordings and sent it toward Earth using an encrypted military channel. Then he settled back to wait and hope that someone would come looking for survivors. Back on Earth, the Galactic Council was meeting an emergency session. The massive chamber held representatives from dozens of alien species. At the center sat the 3 major powers: the Valthari Empire, the Nexari Consortium, and the Ethereal Collective. Ambassador Kethvar of the Valthari Empire stood to address the council. He was a tall, powerful figure with scaled skin and bright yellow eyes. His voice carried easily through the chamber. Fellow members of the council, the Valthari Empire has taken necessary action to protect our ancestral territories. The human colony called New Sol was established in violation of ancient Valthari claims. Despite our protests, the humans refused to leave. We were forced to act. The Nexari trade prince Zolhan, a creature that looked like a giant insect wearing expensive robes, clicked his mandibles thoughtfully. The Nexari Consortium notes that proper procedures were not followed. No formal complaint was filed with the council before military action was taken. The Valthari do not need permission to reclaim what is ours. Kethvar replied coldly. The humans are newcomers to this galaxy. They have been here less than 50 of your years. They do not understand the old ways or the old claims. Ancient keeper Silthara of the Ethereal Collective remained silent. The pale, ghost-like being simply observed with glowing white eyes. Ambassador Kang Da-hyun, Earth's representative to the council, stood slowly. She was a small woman compared to most of the aliens around her, but her voice was steady. The Galactic Council recognizes human settlement rights under the Colonial Expansion Treaty of 2387. New Sol Colony was legally established. Over 2 million human civilians live there. If what Ambassador Kethvar says is true, then the Valthari Empire has committed an act of genocide. Strong words from such a weak species, Kethvar laughed. Your people have a handful of ships and a few small colonies. You are children playing at being adults. This is what happens when children wander into dangerous places. Kang Da-hyun said nothing more. She simply returned to her seat, her face showing no emotion. Inside, however, she was making calculations. The emergency message from Earth Command had been very clear. She was to appear weak and defeated. She was to ask for help that she knew would not come. Most importantly, she was to make sure that the galaxy saw humanity as harmless victims. The council session ended with the Valthari claiming legal right to their actions. The Nexari expressed mild concern about trade route disruptions. The Ethereal Collective said nothing at all. Several smaller species offered sympathy to Earth, but no actual help. As the representatives filed out of the chamber, ancient keeper Silthara finally spoke, but only to herself. Her voice was so quiet that no recording device picked it up. They do not know what they have awakened, she whispered in her ancient language. The children of Earth are not what they seem. Back on the Incheon's Pride, Admiral Park received an encrypted message from Earth. It contained Captain Lee Jin-ho's recordings and a single line of text from Director Choi, Min Jung. Activate Protocol 7, all of them. Park stared at the message for a long time. Protocol 7 was something he had hoped never to see. It meant that Earth was going to war, and they were going to use weapons that the galaxy didn't know they had. He walked to his cabin and opened a secure safe built into the wall. Inside was a small device with a single red button. Above the button were words in several human languages. Break only in case of species survival threat. Admiral Park Hyun-woo pressed the button. 3 weeks had passed since New Sol Colony went silent. The galaxy had moved on to other matters, but humanity had not forgotten. Deep in space, far from the major trade routes and patrol zones, something was happening that no alien intelligence service had detected. Commander Yoon Hae-jin stood in the cargo bay of her stealth cruiser, Sol's Vengeance, watching as the last group of refugees from the outer colonies came aboard. These weren't survivors from New Sol. That colony was gone forever. These were families from smaller human settlements that most aliens didn't even know existed. That's the last transport from Mining Station 12, reported her first officer, Lieutenant Park Soo-bin. All personnel are aboard. The station is now empty and ready for demolition. Yoon nodded. Good. Signal the demolition team. Make it look like an accident. Equipment failure, maybe a reactor overload. We don't want anyone asking questions about why our people left. For weeks now, humanity had been quietly emptying their frontier settlements. The official story was economic problems and supply shortages. The real reason was much different. Every human civilian within 100 light years of Valthari space was being moved to safety. What was coming next would be dangerous for everyone. The Sol's Vengeance was just one of dozens of human ships involved in the evacuation. Most aliens thought humans only had about 300 military vessels. They were wrong. Very wrong. On Earth, Dr. Nam Suho worked late in his underground laboratory. The sign on his door said Agricultural Research Division, but the weapons he was building had nothing to do with farming. Project Prometheus was almost ready, and the galaxy was about to learn that humans had been busy during their 50 years in space. "Doctor, the final test results are in," called his assistant researcher Young Min Ah. She looked tired. They had all been working without sleep for days. "The energy output is exactly what we calculated. The targeting system is perfect. The weapons are ready for deployment." Nam Suho looked at the data on his screen. The numbers were impressive and terrifying. The weapons they had built used technology that humanity had discovered in ancient ruins found floating in Earth's solar system. The ruins were old, maybe 50,000 years old, and whoever built them had understood science in ways that current galactic civilization had forgotten. "Have the production facilities finished the order?" Nam asked. "Yes, sir. 800 weapon systems are complete and ready for installation. The fleet engineers are standing by." Nam nodded, but he felt worried. The technology was powerful, but it was also dangerous. The ancient ruins had come with warnings written in a language that took Earth's best scientists years to translate. The warnings talked about prices that had to be paid and dangers that came with great power. But Earth had no choice. The Valthari had forced their hand. In the Galactic Council chambers, Ambassador Kang De-hyun continued to play her role perfectly. She met with representatives from various alien species, asking for help and humanitarian aid. Each meeting followed the same pattern: expressions of sympathy followed by excuses about why no real help could be provided. The Nixari Consortium understands Earth's difficult situation, Trade Prince Zolhan told her during their latest meeting. However, our trade agreements with the Valthari Empire make direct intervention impossible. Perhaps we could discuss refugee transport services. For a reasonable fee, of course. Kang smiled sadly, exactly as she had practiced. Earth appreciates any help the consortium can provide. We are a small species, and we understand that we must accept whatever assistance is offered. After Zolhan left, Kang activated a secure communication device hidden in her office. The signal was encrypted and bounced through several relay stations before reaching Earth. "Phase 2 is complete," she reported quietly. "All major powers view humanity as defeated and desperate. The Valthari are planning to claim 3 more human systems. Intelligence suggests they will move within the next month." The response from Earth was brief. "Understood. Maintain position and continue performance. The fleet moves tonight." Far from Earth, in a region of space marked on star charts as Empty Sector 947, something impossible was happening. Ships were arriving through hyperspace jumps, but not just a few ships. Hundreds of ships. Big ones. Captain Oh Young-soo stood on the bridge of his heavy cruiser, Gwangju's Fury, and watched as more vessels appeared every few minutes. Each ship that arrived was met by small service craft that began installing new equipment, weapons that glowed with strange energy and looked like nothing the galaxy had seen before. "Sir, the final count is in," reported his weapons officer, Ensign Lee Da-yoon. 847 ships have arrived at the rendezvous point. All vessels are armed with the new weapons systems. Fleet Admiral Park's flagship has arrived. Oh smiled grimly. The galaxy thought humanity had 300 ships. They were about to learn that humans had been very busy building a secret fleet. Mining ships, transport vessels, research craft, many of them had been built with hidden military capabilities. When the call came, they had all answered. The UES Incheon's Pride, Admiral Park Hyun-woo's flagship, took position at the center of the massive fleet. Park looked out at the hundreds of human vessels surrounding his ship and felt a mixture of pride and sadness. This was the largest military force humanity had ever assembled, but it existed only because of the massacre at New Seoul. "Communications from Earth Command," announced Lieutenant Kim Jae-ho. "Final authorization has been received. All fleet commanders are standing by for orders." Park activated the fleet-wide communication system. His voice reached every ship in the massive armada. "This is Fleet Admiral Park Hyun-woo. For 3 weeks, the galaxy has believed that humanity was broken by the destruction of New Seoul Colony. They thought we would beg for mercy and accept whatever scraps of justice they chose to give us. They were wrong." On ships throughout the fleet, human crew members stopped their work to listen. Many had friends or family who died at New Seoul. All of them were angry. The Valthari Empire believes that might makes right, Park continued. They believe that because they are older and stronger, they can murder our people without consequence. Today we will teach them a different lesson. Today we will show the galaxy what happens when you attack human civilians. The fleet began to move. 847 human ships turned toward the same destination, the Valthari home system. It was a journey that would take them 6 hours through hyperspace. When they arrived, the balance of power in the galaxy would change forever. In the Valthari home system, Supreme Admiral Kethran commanded the Empire's home fleet from his massive battleship, the Glory of Valthar. He was the father of Ambassador Kethvar, and he was proud of his son's victory over the weak humans. The home fleet consisted of 300 ships, more than enough to defend against any threat the galaxy could offer. Admiral, our long-range sensors are detecting some unusual readings, reported his sensor officer. There appears to be a large group of ships approaching through hyperspace. The energy signatures are strange. Kethran looked at the display with mild interest. How many ships? The readings are unclear, sir. The signatures don't match any known vessel types. It could be a merchant convoy or perhaps a Nexari trade fleet. Keep monitoring, Kethran ordered. Alert me if they change course toward our system. On Earth, Director Choi Min-jung sat in her office reading reports from across human space. The evacuation was complete. The weapons were installed. The fleet was moving. Everything was ready. Her assistant, Colonel Bei Wan-ho, entered with the final intelligence summary. Director, all preparations are complete. The alien intelligence services have detected nothing. The Galactic Council believes we are still requesting humanitarian aid. Even our own allies think we are defeated, Choi Min-jung nodded. Good. What about the Ethereal Collective? Any unusual activity? Their ships have been moving away from Valthari space for the past week. It's as if they know something is about to happen. The Ethereals are old and wise, Choi said quietly. They probably understand better than anyone what we're about to do. Make sure our fleet commanders know that the Ethereals are not to be considered hostile. She turned to look out her window at the night sky. Somewhere out there, the largest human fleet in history was heading toward its target. In a few hours, the galaxy would learn that humanity was not as helpless as they appeared. Colonel, send a message to Ambassador Kang. Tell her that it's time for the final act. Tomorrow she can stop pretending to be weak. As Earth rotated toward dawn, the human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Valthari home system. 847 ships arranged themselves in perfect attack formation. On the flagship, Admiral Park Hyun-woo looked at the tactical display showing the Valthari home fleet. Sir, we outnumber them almost 3-1, reported his tactical officer. They appear to be confused by our arrival. No defensive positions taken yet. Park activated the communication system one more time. This message would be broadcast on all frequencies, reaching not just the Valthari fleet, but every listening station in the galaxy. This is Fleet Admiral Park Hyun-woo of the United Earth Fleet. We have come to collect a debt. The Valthari home system had never seen anything like it. 847 human ships hung in space like a dark cloud, their hulls gleaming with strange new weapons that pulsed with unknown energy. On the bridge of his flagship, Supreme Admiral Kethran stared at the tactical display in shock. This is impossible, he growled to his officers. Human intelligence reports said they had 300 ships maximum. Where did all these vessels come from? His sensor officer was frantically working at his controls. Sir, the energy readings from their ships are unlike anything in our database. These weapon signatures don't match any known galactic technology. Get me a communication channel to the human fleet, Kethran ordered. He would demand an explanation for this invasion of Valthari space. Admiral Park Hyun-woo's face appeared on the main screen of the Valthari flagship. His expression was calm, but his eyes were cold as ice. I am Supreme Admiral Kethran of the Valthari Empire. You are in violation of our territorial space. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences. Park smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Supreme Admiral, I believe your son mentioned consequences to the people of New Sol Colony. How did that work out for them? The New Sol matter was settled according to ancient Valthari law. Your people were trespassing on our ancestral territory. Your son murdered 2.3 million civilians, Park replied quietly. Men, women, and children who had never harmed a single Valthari. Today, we settle that debt. The communication ended. Park turned to his weapons officer. Captain Song, You may demonstrate our new capabilities. Captain Song Ye-Yun commanded the experimental dreadnought New Souls Memorial, a ship built specifically to carry humanity's most powerful new weapon. The massive vessel moved forward from the human fleet, its hull crackling with energy that made the space around it shimmer like heat waves. Target the Valthari battlecruiser. Thunder of War, Park ordered. One shot. Make it clean. Song nodded and activated her ship's main weapon. Deep inside the New Souls Memorial, ancient technology that humanity barely understood began to charge. The weapon drew power not just from the ship's reactors but from the fabric of space itself. On the Thunder of War, Captain Velthar watched the human dreadnought approach. All weapons target that ship. Fire when ready. The Valthari battlecruiser's energy beams lanced out toward the human vessel. The beams were powerful enough to destroy most ships in a single hit. They struck the New Souls Memorial's shields and simply disappeared, absorbed by defensive systems that shouldn't have been possible. Our weapons have no effect, reported Velthar's gunner in amazement. Their shields are absorbing our energy completely. Song Ye-Yun activated her main weapon. A beam of pure white light erupted from her ship, but this wasn't normal laser energy. This was something that tore through the very structure of space-time. The beam struck the Thunder of War's shields and passed through them like they weren't even there. The Valthari battlecruiser simply ceased to exist. There was no explosion, no debris field. One moment it was there, and the next moment there was only empty space. The weapon had unmade the ship at a molecular level. Across the Valthari fleet, alarm sirens began to wail. Supreme Admiral Kethran stared at the spot where one of his most powerful ships had been just seconds before. What kind of weapon was that? He whispered. His science officer was pale with fear. Admiral, the energy readings suggest they're using some form of matter disintegration technology. Our shields won't protect us from weapons like that. Park's voice came over the communication channel again. Supreme Admiral, that was a demonstration. You have one chance to order your fleet to stand down. If you choose to fight, none of your ships will survive. Kethran was a proud warrior, and pride was stronger than fear. All ships attack formation. We are Valthari. We do not surrender to anyone. The battle that followed was unlike anything in recorded galactic history. The Valthari fleet fought with courage and skill, but they might as well have been throwing rocks at a mountain. Human weapons tore through their shields and armor like they were made of paper. Ships that had ruled space for 1,000 years died in seconds. Lieutenant Colonel Bei Ji-wan led the marine assault on the Valthari command ship. Her troops wore powered armor that incorporated the same ancient technology as the fleet's weapons. When Valthari soldiers shot at them, the energy beams were absorbed and redirected. When the Marines shot back, their weapons cut through Valthari battle armor like it was cloth. Deck 7 secured, Bei reported over the communication system, moving toward the bridge. Resistance is light. Their weapons can't penetrate our armor. Captain Oh Young-Soo's heavy cruiser, Gwangju's Fury, targeted the Valthari orbital shipyards. His weapons weren't as powerful as the dreadnought's main gun, but they were still far beyond anything the galaxy had seen before. The massive construction facilities that had built Valthari ships for centuries melted away under the assault. Sir, all orbital installations have been destroyed, reported his tactical officer. The Valthari home fleet is down to less than 50 ships. They're requesting surrender. In 4 hours it was over. The Valthari home fleet was either destroyed or captured. Their orbital defenses were scrap metal floating in space. Their shipyards were gone. The empire that had dominated this region of space for a millennium had been crushed by a species they had considered weak primitives. Supreme Admiral Kethran sat in his command chair, staring at the tactical display that showed only human ships. His proud fleet was gone. His son's victory at New Sol had cost the Valthari Empire everything. Sir, his communication officer said quietly, the humans are demanding your surrender. On the surface of the Valthari homeworld, War Chief Kethavar watched the sky through the windows of the council chamber. Burning debris from his people's fleet streaked across the heavens like falling stars. He activated an emergency channel to the Galactic Council. This is War Chief Kethvar requesting immediate council intervention. The humans have attacked our home system with weapons that violate every galactic treaty. They have technology that should not exist. Our entire fleet has been destroyed. We need help immediately. The response came from Trade Prince Zolhan of the Nexari Consortium. His insect-like voice was coldly practical. The Nexari Consortium has reviewed the situation. Our legal experts have determined that the humans are within their rights to seek compensation for damages inflicted upon their colony. The consortium recognizes the human claim and advises the Valthari Empire to negotiate a settlement. Settlement? Cathavar roared. They destroyed our entire fleet. They're using weapons that could threaten every species in the galaxy. That is unfortunate, Zolhan replied. Perhaps the Valthari should have considered such possibilities before attacking human civilians. The communication ended. Cathavar stared at the silent device in his hand. The galaxy's greatest traders had just abandoned the Valthari Empire because it was no longer profitable to support them. In her chambers on the ethereal homeworld, ancient keeper Silthera had been meditating for 3 days. Her species was old, older than most civilizations in the galaxy. They remembered things that others had forgotten. When she finally opened her glowing eyes, her first action was to send a message to Admiral Park. The human commander received the transmission on his flagship as his marines finished securing the Valthari orbital stations. The ethereal's image appeared on his screen, pale, ghost-like, with white eyes that seemed to see through time itself. Admiral Park of the human fleet, Silthera said, her voice like whispers of wind. We know what technology you have awakened. We know where you found it and what it once belonged to. You wield the weapons of the precursors, the first great civilization of this galaxy. Park studied the alien's face. And what do you know about the precursors? We know they built weapons like yours 50,000 years ago. We know they used those weapons to fight an enemy that came from beyond this galaxy. And we know that both the precursors and their enemies vanished, leaving only ruins and warnings behind. Are you threatening us? No, Admiral. We are warning you. The weapons you use have a price. The precursors discovered this too late. Use your new power wisely, for others sought such strength before you and paid the ultimate price. The transmission ended, leaving Park with more questions than answers. But there was no time to think about ancient mysteries. He had a galaxy to reshape. Across the galaxy, every major power was scrambling to understand what had just happened. The humans had gone from being dismissed as weak newcomers to being the strongest military force anyone had seen. Species that had ignored Earth's requests for help were suddenly very interested in making friends. Ambassador Kang. Dahyun received 17 requests for emergency meetings in the first hour after the battle ended. Representatives who had dismissed her just days before were now asking about trade agreements and mutual defense pacts. On Earth, Director Choi Min-jung watched reports from the Valthari system with satisfaction. The demonstration had worked perfectly. The galaxy now understood that humanity was not weak, and those responsible for New Sol's destruction had paid the price. But she also understood that everything had changed. Humanity could no longer pretend to be harmless newcomers. They were now a major power, and with that, 2 months after the Battle of Valthar Prime, the galaxy was still trying to understand what had happened. The Valthari Empire, once proud rulers of half a dozen star systems, now existed under human oversight. Admiral Park Hyun-woo had established a permanent human presence in orbit around their homeworld, while Governor Lee Soo-jin worked with surviving Valthari leaders to rebuild their shattered infrastructure. The galaxy's balance of power had shifted completely. Species that had never taken humans seriously were now sending desperate diplomatic messages to Earth. Everyone wanted to know how a newcomer race had acquired weapons that seemed to break the laws of physics. Ambassador Kang. Dahyun no longer had to pretend to be weak. Her office at the Galactic Council was now constantly busy with meetings. Representatives from dozens of species wanted to discuss trade agreements, defense pacts, and technology sharing deals. The Nexari Consortium would be honored to offer humanity full membership in our trading network, Trade Prince Zolhan told her during their latest meeting. The insect-like alien's manner had changed completely since the battle. Where once he had been dismissive, now he was almost desperate to please. We can provide access to markets throughout the galaxy, and our shipping network could greatly benefit human colonies. And what does the consortium want in return? Kang asked, knowing the answer already. We would be interested in learning more about human military technology. Perhaps some kind of technology sharing agreement? For mutual protection, of course, Kang smiled politely. I will discuss your offer with Earth Command. We appreciate the consortium's interest in our welfare. After Zolhan left, Kang activated her secure communication system to report to Earth. The conversation would be encrypted and bounced through several relay stations to prevent interception. Earth Command, this is Ambassador Kang. The Nexari are still fishing for information about our weapons technology. They're offering full trade membership in exchange for military cooperation. Director Choi Min-jung's voice came through the speaker. What's your assessment of their offer? They're scared, Director. Everyone is scared. The demonstration at Valthar Prime was more effective than we hoped. Half the galaxy wants to be our friend and the other half is afraid to be our enemy. Good. That was the goal. What about the Ethereals? They've been quiet since ancient Keeper Silthera's message to Admiral Park. Their ships have pulled back from all frontier areas. It's as if they're avoiding contact with everyone. On the other side of the galaxy, Dr. Nam Suho was having problems of his own. The ancient technology that powered humanity's new weapons was more complex than anyone had realized. His research team had been working around the clock to understand exactly what they had built. Doctor, we need to talk, said his assistant, Jung Minna. She looked tired and worried. The energy consumption data from the fleet weapons is concerning. Nam studied the reports she handed him. The numbers were not what he wanted to see. The weapons are drawing more power than we calculated? It's not just power, sir. They're drawing something else. Life force, maybe. Or time itself. The readings are unlike anything we've ever seen. Nam frowned as he looked at the data. The weapons worked by tapping into forces that conventional science couldn't explain. The ancient ruins where humanity had found the technology had come with warnings. But those warnings had been written in a language that took years to translate. Now he was beginning to understand what those warnings meant. Get me a direct channel to Admiral Park's flagship. He needs to know about this immediately. Meanwhile, Captain Ryu Taimin was leading humanity's first expedition to an ancient precursor site that the Ethereals had revealed. His exploration vessel, Daegu Pioneer, was equipped with the best scientific equipment Earth could provide. The team's mission was to learn more about the mysterious civilization that had built humanity's new weapons. Captain, we're approaching the coordinates provided by the Ethereals, reported his navigator, Lieutenant Cho Hyojin. Long-range sensors are detecting artificial structures on the third planet. The planet looked dead from space. No atmosphere. No life signs, just gray rock and metal structures that were older than human civilization. But as the Daegu Pioneer entered orbit, the ship's sensors began detecting energy readings that shouldn't have existed. Sir, some of the structures down there are still active, reported the science officer, Dr. Park Ji-yoon. Minimal power levels, but definitely functional after 50,000 years. Whatever the precursors built, they built it to last. The landing party that Ryu led to the surface found ruins that defied understanding. Massive buildings that seemed to be grown rather than built, covered in writing that hurt to look at directly. At the center of the complex was something that looked like a library. Vast chambers filled with crystal storage devices that still glowed with inner light. Captain, you need to see this, Dr. Park called out from one of the chambers. These crystals contain information. Massive amounts of data. If we can figure out how to read them, we might learn everything about precursor civilization. But as they explored deeper into the ruins, they found something that made everyone stop and stare. In the deepest chamber was a wall covered with images, pictures that told a story of war and destruction. The images showed precursor ships fighting against something that came from the dark spaces between galaxies, ships that looked organic, like they were grown instead of built. The Ethereals were right, Ryu whispered as he looked at the ancient pictures. The precursors didn't just disappear. They were fighting something that came from outside our galaxy. Back in human space, Commander Yoon Hae-jin was investigating captured Valthari military records when she discovered something that changed everything. Her stealth cruiser Soul's Vengeance had been assigned to analyze enemy intelligence, looking for information about other potential threats. Captain, I think I found something important, her intelligence officer Lieutenant Nam Ki-jun reported. These Valthari records show that they had been monitoring New Soul Colony for months before the attack. But look at this, they weren't interested in the colony itself. They were watching the mining operations. Yoon studied the data on her screen. The Valthari had been tracking human excavation work on New Soul's northern continent. The mining teams had been digging deep, following unusual mineral deposits that didn't match anything in the geological surveys. What were our people mining there? She asked. According to these records, they found something buried under the surface, something artificial. The Valthari intelligence report suggests it was some kind of ancient facility. Yoon felt a chill as she realized what this meant. Get me a secure channel to Earth Command immediately. This changes everything. The revelation reached Director Choi Min-jung just as she was meeting with Earth's Colonial Defense Council. President Han Ji-yoon of the Colonial Alliance had requested military assistance in defending against potential Valthari retaliation raids. Director, we've just received disturbing intelligence from Commander Yoon, Colonel Bae Won-ho reported. The Valthari attack on New Seoul wasn't random. They were trying to prevent us from accessing a precursor facility that our mining teams had discovered. Choi Min-jung was quiet for a moment as she processed this information. So the massacre happened because they were afraid of what we might find. It appears so, Director. The attack was launched 3 days after Valthari intelligence confirmed that our excavation had reached the buried facility. Their strike was surgical. They destroyed the colony but avoided bombing the dig site. And now we control that dig site, Choi observed. What condition is the facility in? Unknown, Director. The surface was damaged by orbital bombardment, but the precursor structure is deep underground. It may still be intact. Across the galaxy, other powers were beginning to reassess their relationships with Earth. The small species that had always lived in fear of the major powers were suddenly very interested in human friendship. If humanity could crush the mighty Valthari Empire in 4 hours, perhaps they could provide protection for smaller, weaker civilizations. President Han Ji-yoon's Colonial Defense Alliance had grown from 12 member species to 37 in just 2 months. Her request for human military assistance was just the first of many such requests that Earth was receiving. Admiral Park, we're being offered more alliances than we can handle, Ambassador Kang reported during their weekly secure communication. The smaller species see us as their best hope for protection against the major powers. And what do you think we should do? Park asked from his flagship, still orbiting the Valthari homeworld. I think we need to be very careful, Admiral. The galaxy is watching everything we do. If we seem too aggressive, we'll face a coalition against us. If we seem too weak, everyone will try to take advantage. On Earth, Dr. Nam Soo-ho finally received permission to examine the New Seoul dig site. His team landed on the deadworld surface and began excavating the precursor facility that had cost so many lives. What they found in the depths exceeded their wildest expectations. The facility wasn't just a weapons cache. It was a vast library containing the technological and historical records of dozens of extinct civilizations. The precursors had been collectors of knowledge, gathering information from every species they. 6 months after humanity's shocking victory over the Valthari Empire, the galaxy faced a threat that made all previous conflicts seem like small disputes between children. Dr. Nam Soo-ho stood in his laboratory on Earth, surrounded by data that painted a terrifying picture of the future. Director Choi, the translation of the precursor records is complete, he reported via secure communication. What we've learned changes everything we thought we knew about galactic history. Director Choi Min-jung appeared on his screen, her face grave. Tell me, Doctor. The precursors didn't vanish, Director. They were consumed by something called the Devourers, an extragalactic force that appears every 50,000 years to strip entire civilizations from existence. The energy signatures that Admiral Park's fleet detected at the galaxy's edge match precursor warnings about their return. Choi was silent for a moment. How long do we have? Based on the approach speed recorded by our deep space sensors, perhaps 6 months. Maybe less. The implications were staggering. Earth's Strategic Command had been preparing for potential conflicts with other galactic powers. Now they faced something that had destroyed civilizations far more advanced than anything currently existing. Doctor, prepare a full briefing for the Galactic Council. If we're going to survive this, we'll need everyone working together. Admiral Park Hyun-woo received the news aboard his flagship while coordinating with former Valthari officers. The irony wasn't lost on him. The enemies who had murdered millions at New Seoul were now potential allies against a greater threat. Supreme Admiral Kethran, once proud commander of the Valthari home fleet, now sat across from Park in the human flagship's briefing room. The alien warrior looked older than his years, broken by defeat but still possessing military knowledge that might prove crucial. Admiral Park, my people have deep space monitoring stations beyond the galactic rim, Kethran said quietly. Stations that have been recording unusual readings for months. We didn't understand what we were seeing until now. What kind of readings? Park asked. Energy patterns unlike anything in our database. Ships, but not ships as we understand them. Massive structures that seem to be grown rather than built. They consume space itself as they move, leaving empty void behind them. Park studied the data that Kethron provided. The information painted a picture of an approaching fleet that dwarfed anything the galaxy had ever seen. Thousands of organic-looking vessels, each one larger than Earth's biggest space stations. Supreme Admiral, I'm authorized to offer you and your people a chance to regain honor in the service of galactic defense. Will you help us fight this threat? Kethron met Park's eyes steadily. Admiral, my son ordered the destruction of your colony. My people murdered millions of humans. Why would you trust us? Because right now we need every ship and every experienced officer we can get. The Devourers don't care about our past conflicts. They'll destroy all of us equally. Ambassador Kang De-hyun presented the evidence to an emergency session of the Galactic Council. The massive chamber was filled with representatives from every major power, and for once the usual political maneuvering was absent. Fear had a way of focusing minds wonderfully. Fellow members of the Council, Kang began, humanity shares this intelligence not as a threat but as a warning. The approaching Devourer fleet represents an extinction level threat to every species in this galaxy. The holographic display showed images from the precursor records. Vast organic ships, consuming entire star systems, leaving nothing but empty space behind. The chamber fell silent as the representatives absorbed what they were seeing. Trade Prince Zolhan of the Nexari was the first to speak. Ambassador Kang, what capabilities do these Devourers possess? They appear to feed on organized matter and energy. Planets, stars, entire solar systems. Everything gets consumed and converted into more ships for their fleet. The precursor records suggest they're not even truly alive as we understand life. They're more like a cosmic force of destruction. Ancient Keeper Silthara rose from her seat. The pale ethereal's voice carried clearly through the chamber. The honored ambassador speaks truth. We ethereals are the descendants of those who survived the last Devourer incursion 50,000 years ago. Our ancestors fled to the galaxy's edge and watched their civilization die. A murmur ran through the chamber. The ethereals had never revealed their true origins before. What do you know about fighting them? Asked President Han Ji-yoon of the Colonial Defense Alliance. The precursors built weapons like the ones humanity now possesses, Silthara replied. Those weapons can harm the Devourers, but they exact a terrible price from those who use them. The technology slowly consumes the life force of its operators. It's why the precursors ultimately failed. Their weapons killed them almost as efficiently as their enemies did. Captain Song Ye-eun received this news aboard her dreadnought. New Soul's memorial with growing concern. She had been experiencing strange symptoms lately. Fatigue that sleep couldn't cure. Moments where she felt disconnected from reality. Now she understood why. Dr. Park, run complete medical scans on all crew members who operate the main weapon systems, she ordered her ship's medical officer. I want to know exactly what these weapons are doing to us. The results were sobering. Every human who regularly operated the precursor technology showed signs of cellular degradation, as if they were aging at an accelerated rate. The weapons that had made humanity the galaxy's most powerful military force were slowly killing their operators. Dr. Nam Suho worked frantically to find a solution. The ancient technology was more complex than humanity had realized, operating on principles that conventional science couldn't fully explain. The weapons tapped directly into the life force of their operators, he explained to Director Choi during their emergency conference. It's how they generate such enormous power. But the process is unsustainable. Our weapons crews will burn out within months of regular combat operations. Can we modify the technology? Make it safer? I don't think so, Director. The precursors tried for centuries to solve this problem. The power source is fundamental to how the weapons work. We can dilute the effect by rotating crews more frequently, but we can't eliminate it entirely. On the exploration vessel Daegu Pioneer, Captain Ryu Tai-min made a discovery that offered hope. His team had been analyzing precursor records when they found references to a different approach. Weapons that drew power from multiple operators simultaneously, spreading the life force drain across many individuals instead of concentrating it in one person. Captain, if we could modify our weapons to operate with larger crews, we could reduce the individual cost, Dr. Park Ji-yoon reported. Instead of one person paying the full price, 10 people could each pay a tenth of the cost. Would that be survivable? Theoretically, yes. The drain would be manageable if spread across enough people, but it would require completely redesigning our weapon systems and training crews from multiple species. The idea sparked something in Admiral Park's mind. If the weapons cost could be shared, then perhaps the burden of defending the galaxy could be shared as well. He called an emergency meeting with representatives from every major power. The meeting took place aboard the neutral ethereal station at the galaxy's core. Representatives from humanity, the reformed Valthari Empire, the Nexari Consortium, the Ethereal Collective, and dozens of smaller powers gathered in one room for the first time in galactic history. The Devourer threat requires a united response. Park addressed the assembled delegates. No single species has the resources to fight this enemy alone, but together we might have a chance. Supreme Admiral Kethran spoke for the Valthari. What are you proposing, Admiral? A combined fleet under unified command. Human weapons technology shared with all participants. Crews drawn from every species, working together to operate weapons that no single person could survive using alone. The proposal was revolutionary. Species that had been enemies for millennia would have to trust each other with their most advanced technology and their most experienced crews. Trade Prince Zolhan was practical as always. The Nexari Consortium can provide logistic support and supply lines. Our merchant fleet is the largest in the galaxy. The Ethereals will share our historical knowledge of Devourer tactics, added Ancient Keeper Silthera. We remember how they fight, how they think. President Han Ji-yoon represented the smaller powers. The Colonial Defense Alliance offers every ship we have. We may not be powerful individually, but together we number in the thousands. The Galactic Defense Compact was formed that day. For the first time in recorded history, every major power in the galaxy agreed to work together under a single command structure. Admiral Park was chosen as Supreme Commander, with representatives from each member species serving as his advisors. Lieutenant Colonel Bei Ji-wan oversaw the integration of mixed species crews aboard human vessels. It wasn't easy. Different species had different physiologies, different command structures, different ways of thinking about combat. But somehow it worked. Sir, the first mixed crew trials are showing promising results, she reported to Admiral Park. The Valthari bring tactical experience. The Nexari have excellent technical skills, and the Ethereals provide strategic insight. When they work together,